My girlfriend Jen is like a huge Twilight fan, so you're gonna get me in trouble.
All right, so someone has commented that they are watching, so we are in fact live. So that's okay. We're just discussing Robert Pattinson movies, which, as you heard, are quality films. Anyway, I'm Roger Nokes. No, not Twilight, but since Twilight. Come on, let's all be on the same page. Anyway, this is a Rock and a Hard Place Editors Roundtable. My name is Roger Nokes, Editor-in-Chief. Everyone, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'm Al Tucker, Associate Editor.
Jay Butkowski, Managing Editor.
Nikki Dolson, Associate Editor.
Cool. So thank you, everyone, for joining, and for those watching. We're going to record this too, so we'll have it if anyone misses, and Facebook will be recording. So we just wanted to talk to everyone to let you know, kind of give you a better sense of what the magazine is about, what we're looking for in submissions, talk about the ideas, why we're doing this, things like that. And if anyone has any questions, type them in the Facebook comments and we'll try to answer them. So why did we decide to do this? So I think we can each say, whether it's why we decided to do this or why we decided to join this. But anyway, I mean, the short story is that I didn't see anywhere else that was doing anything exactly like this. My real introduction to kind of literary noir came through the site Lit Reactor, actually, and I took a class with the author Ben Whitmer, and he talked about noir and how it was about losers and people on the outside. And there are a lot of magazines that include stories like that, but I didn't find any that exclusively dealt with that. And I think I kind of took that idea and worked with it with a lot of my own kind of political leanings and other interests, and thought that, okay, we can work with noir as a starting point, but then maybe change it a little bit. So noir involves crime, and a lot of what you'll see in Rock and a Hard Place involves crime. But I think there are a lot of stories that deal with people on the outskirts or people that are marginalized that do not involve crime. So I felt like, okay, let's open this up a little bit more. And also, I really like other genres. As a writer, I don't write, even though so little of mine is published, but I don't write exclusively crime. I don't read exclusively crime. I like a lot of literary stuff. I like a lot of bizarro stuff, just kind of unhinged things with a lot of social themes. Anyway, those are the ideas behind the magazine. It started practically when I just started talking to a few people about the idea, and got connected to more people as a result of talking to people about that idea. And that's how it started. I had no experience doing something like this. So we're learning as we go. Anyone else want to say where you guys want to go?
Yeah, I think I could jump in from there. So initially I was approached by our late producing editor, John Elliott, who had known Roger online and kind of made the connection. And for me, it was, I wasn't sure about doing it, only because the way it was pitched to me was that it was going to be a magazine about marginalized people. And I felt like I wasn't necessarily qualified to be able to put together a magazine for marginalized people. But the more I thought about it, I felt like it was something that, for me, a lot of the work that we put out there is about growing empathy in people and kind of exposing people to other viewpoints, other perspectives, other challenges, other struggles, stuff that they may be familiar with and stuff that they might not be familiar with, and really kind of growing people and through the use of storytelling, kind of growing people's empathy and making those connections between people, so that we weren't just talking about marginalization in terms of the color of someone's skin or their gender or their sexual preference, but we started talking about marginalization as just people that are sort of on the fringe, people that aren't necessarily part of the mainstream. And when we started talking about how do we connect those people, how do we connect everyone through the art of storytelling, that's, I think, when the magazine really came alive for me. So Al, Nikki, you guys want to add in on that?
I was a contributor before I was an editor, and when the magazine came out, there was this great mix of authors I knew, like S.J. Rosen, and authors I didn't know, like Rick Risenberg. And so when the chance came to become an associate editor, I jumped at it, and I've continued to read some new people, I probably wouldn't have come into contact with. So it's been a great experience for that reason.
Good to have you.
Jay and Roger, I think you two are the ones who sent me the invite to join. And I was tickled. But honestly, I jumped at the chance because I think there comes a certain point when you are a writer, to improve what you're writing, you need to be exposed to other writing. I mean, you have to read and you have to write. And for me, I was in that right point when y'all contacted me to be like, I need more exposure. And I think reading the stories that come in, that so many different voices and their own spins on what they see in the world and how that translates to their fiction, selfishly helps me. And I also like finding great stories. I mean, the story, even if it doesn't make it into the mag, I'm still entertained. I mean, I think we've had conversations about stories that were really close, or that worked, or that made us think about other stories and how fiction works and how noir works. And as someone who, that is primarily what I write, it's fun for me.
I think one of the hardest things for me is when we get a story that I think we love, but it just doesn't fit with what we're trying to do with Rock in a Hard Place. And I think that's, because we've set ourselves up to talk about, people that are struggling, we're the chronicle of bad decisions and desperate people. So when we get a story where it's chock full of bad decisions, but a little too much privilege, it's like, you were almost there. And then we had, at the end of the day, it's like, even though we love the story, sometimes we might take a pass just because we don't think we're the publication for it. So if any of our, contributors or people that have submitted to us, if they get a rejection from us like that, know that it's not because we didn't like the story. It's because we really like the story. We just don't think we're the publication for that particular story.
Yeah.
I was going to say, can it be said that, well, never mind. That's for later. That's for the outtakes. Can we have outtakes? Can we have a blooper run of this?
Yeah, we'll air the pratfalls episode after this.
Yeah, we'll do the outtakes for Patreon. We'll edit it, and then all the jokes and stuff. You have to pay $1 to see that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, Nikki brought something up that was definitely behind my motivation too. Was feeling very similar, that I reached a point in my own writing where I needed to see more, because I felt I kind of plateaued, not just in terms of acceptances, but in terms of what I was able to write. And I needed to see more. And, you know, I asked a bunch of people, as I said, for a while, I had done a few months of just kind of tossing this idea around to people. And a lot of people said, you don't want to start a magazine. You have no idea the amount of work that's involved. And I mean, yeah, it's a lot of work. And I said, well, you know, I want to be exposed to more writing. And that's one friend of mine said, well, that's what the library's for. And that was pre-pandemic, so you could still go to the library. But I do feel that there's a different aspect of reading a story because the number of times we read it, and I've really gotten the feel now. Like I could tell you intellectually before what a good story was, but now I really feel it. Like the rhythm is different for a story that works. And I can't articulate that further, but I know in me, like I can feel like, okay, this works now. And I get that better. There's a question on Facebook. We're starting to get some, but Michael asks, how has editing the magazine impacted your writing? Do you view your own work differently now that you've seen the variety of material that appears in the slush file? Yes, absolutely. And I know, like we've only been doing this for a year, right? And we've seen so much. So I know really kind of what's a novel idea. And I feel like now I see like, don't do this to an editor. Don't try to be cute. This is me talking to myself. I'm less likely to do things that are like, ooh, look at this little trick, and instead just tell the story. So it has impacted my writing. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I catch myself doing things that annoy me as an editor, and I say, "Oh, stop that!" You know.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like, I think for me, it's given me a little more flexibility. Like if you know, I'm one of those writers that really gets into the whole like imposter syndrome thing, where I'm like, this is crap. Nikki's got her hand up. I think we're in the same boat. And you just kind of second guess every choice you make. And then when you start like plowing through like 60, 70 submissions, and you realize it's, you know, it puts you into a different like mindset in terms of, you know, a quality story doesn't have to, I mean, you always want to tell that quality story, but it puts you in a place where you can recognize quality in other people's work, and you start to do it quickly because we get like 150 submissions in a writing period, and we have to figure out, okay, which, 30 are going to make the cut. And then you start to recognize it in your own work, and you say, okay, maybe I'm not as, bad off as I think I might be. So.
Yeah, I've also, it's helped me free up the words. Like I worry less because we see a whole range of things. And now I'm more kind of accepting of myself of saying like, I can still submit this and I don't have to worry about being kind of embarrassed about not being the highest performer or whatever you want to call it, because everyone's on the spectrum and I don't have to worry so much about perfection.
I will say the one thing that it's made me do is really respect editors more. Because, in addition to the imposter syndrome, when you do get that, like, all right, I've found my niche. I've written this story that I think is, the most brilliant thing in the world. I'm going to submit it out there. And you get that rejection. You're just like, what are they missing? It must be them. It can't be me. And then you realize, no, sometimes it is you. And you really got to respect the editors who, they have a vision of how they want to put out their publication. They have a vision of what they're looking for, and, got to give them those props.
Yeah. And always take it personally, even though sometimes it is.
Well, there's certain people that should take it personally, but we're not going to talk about that on this call.
Hey, look, I got a couple of rejections last week. I talked my way through it with some wine and my sister, and I'm better now. But I still take it personally. I still do. It doesn't sting as much, but the personal part of it is always you sent it before it was ready, didn't you? Like, I know me. And it, I mean, at some point you have to let it go. You just free it into the wild. But there's always that niggling little voice. It's like, that paragraph's awful. You could have split it. It's too long, or, something. And even through this process of reading for Rock and Hard Place, it hasn't changed the sting for me. It's still, I when I read though, I'm nowhere near as hard as on anybody who sent the story, because it's either it works for me or it doesn't. But unlike mine, all of my stuff is bad. Even when I send it and it gets someplace good, it's still bad for me.
No, it's brilliant.
No, it's not. But okay, yeah, I'll give you that money later.
So we have another question that is, I think it's a difficult one. I've been staring at it for a little bit. Do you find that the stories that resonate most with you are the ones that reflect your own lives, or the ones that reach into wholly unfamiliar experiences? I really don't know. I think it's, for me, it's both.
Yeah, my life is too boring to be noir. Yeah, I would rule out my own life completely from consideration.
I think for me, if the struggle feels too personal, sometimes I don't want to go down that hallway. Sometimes it's like, if it feels like it's too relatable to something I've experienced in my own life, it can be a challenge. But other times I think if it's, like I said before, it's about, telling stories. And if I feel like something can help me tell my story, sometimes I'll give it another look. But for the most part, I'd say if it's too personal for me, sometimes I defer to the other editors.
And for me, I guess I'm always searching for that little piece that I can connect to, because that is a story that works for me. Whether the main character looks like me or has 3 kids or, got fired from their job and laid off and had a hard time, or none of those things. It's that moment when you're so frustrated, you lash out. That is, if I'm with them in that, then that is me. And then that story is working for me. I think good stories can hit all the points they're supposed to hit and do nothing for me. Whereas it works for all of y'all. That's why, rejection is a thing you shouldn't take personally, which is the lesson I'm still learning.
Yeah. So authors write 50% of the stories about us and 50% of the stories not about us. And, we'll do one of them.
I mean, like, there are stories that I was just like, I have our second issue right here in front of me, just on my desk. It just happened to be there. And I'm looking through, and there are stories that I related to. And there are stories that I'll just say, first story in issue 2, No One Has to Know by Paul Gadsby. Absolutely. Having a baby on the way and being stuck in a shitty job. I was 19 years old when my son was born. I was a sophomore in college. I definitely know what it's like. I obviously didn't, that story is an extreme. I did not become involved in organized crime as a result,
That we know of.
That I'm going to admit on Facebook Live. Right. But, I still get it. And then any story about being, low on cash and being stuck in a shitty job, yeah, that's going to resonate with me. Another one is, one of our favorites is Potato Sandwich Days. We've all worked those shitty service jobs and want to attack the person that treated us like shit across the counter. So yeah, that one resonates with me. And then there are ones that, I knew people like that. Like issue 1, Alan Leverone's story, Town Full of Losers. Yeah, I grew up with people like that. So those things, they do resonate with me.
No one on this particular Facebook Live, but he grew up with people like that.
Oh, I mean, they're dead now. But
okay.
But yeah.
So they're not on Facebook.
No. But yeah, for sure. So a lot of them do. And I think what makes a good story is that even if I didn't have those experiences, if it is humane, I can understand those experiences and it's going to resonate with me whether or not I've lived it.
Yeah.
So we've got a few. Rick Risenberg, I'm sorry, Rick, was talking about rejection. I don't think he's got a question there, but we love Rick.
Yeah, Rick shouldn't be talking about rejection since we pretty much let every one of his stories go through.
So Jen Conley asks, what do you look for in the first line? I don't know. I'm not that sort of reader. I don't really care what the first line is as long as it's not bad. I don't worry about that. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
I love a good first line, but it's not a deal breaker. If they can't all be, can't all be brilliant. I don't know. I'm going to keep reading even if the first one doesn't knock me out.
Yeah, I think for me, I like a good balance. So I like that, grab me in the beginning and leave me wanting more at the end, and punctuated throughout with points of brilliance. And I think that's going to get me. I kind of take that approach when we start looking at like order for the stories too. One of the things that as we're working through how this book is all going to come together, I always kind of think of it as like a mixtape. And I want to start off with something that's going to grab readers' attention. I want to leave them wanting more. And I want to, mix the long stories with the short stories. I want to mix the funny stories with the dark stories. If something feels like it's, a little too much in one direction, I'm going to take it in the other direction with the next story. So I think that approach to how we put together the book in itself, I think also speaks to the sort of stories that I like to see. So if you can do that with your story, that's probably going to get my attention.
Okay. Another question on Facebook. Go ahead, Nikki. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm going to... a good first line is still everything to me, but it's more important how you end. If you can't end well, then, I don't care how, I don't care if the gun was there and it went off and it was great, but if you end badly, it's still going to be a no. It's going to be, I wish, but your beginnings hopefully grab us, but your endings need to absolutely leave us wanting more and stunned, maybe. That would be good.
Yeah, I agree with that. An impactful ending can make up for a lot of other sins in the story.
I remember a contest that I entered years ago. I entered it even though it struck me as kind of pointless. It was for the best beginning. I mean, what if the rest of it sucks? I mean, I didn't win, by the way.
Because you were cynical about it.
Yeah, probably.
I can't criticize anyone for being cynical. So another question we have, you're open to fiction of any genre or stories that mix genres. Has that expanded your vision as editors or writers? Absolutely. I want to read more weird shit. So if you can hit our themes and make it really weird, I love it. What do you guys think?
That's the important thing, is you have to hit our themes. I remember when we launched issue 1, we got some stuff that was like hard sci-fi. We got some stuff that was like, it didn't really seem to connect with what we were trying to do. And I guess that's hard for issue 1 because, we're not out there. People don't know what we're trying to do. But now if we start to get something that doesn't hit those themes, it's like, all right, you might write the most brilliant, space opera in the world. It's not going to get published in Rock and a Hard Place unless it's hitting what we're looking for.
I've done a couple of shorts, flash length stories that I reread them and I said, these are kind of literary. And I don't know if I could have done this even a short time ago. Everything I wrote turned out to be crime.
If you can, I love a good mashup. So, whatever a story brings to the table, if it does it well, I'm almost always in. But that said, if Jay likes weird Westerns, you're probably going to miss me, but there are other people here. That's why, all of us are reading this and all of us are talking about it.
Roger likes the weird Westerns.
that Chimera that we did, man. But I also acknowledge that a weird Western is probably not going to hit our themes, but that's okay. I'll still enjoy. Look, if you send me a story that we don't reject, that we don't take, that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, right.
I'm saying if somebody sent 310 to Yuma now, it's somebody between a rock and a hard place. He has a hard choice in that story. It is a Western. It's solidly a Western. And if Cthulhu shows up in it, it is also weird. Maybe that's the hard place. I'm just saying you might miss me, but now you'll get Roger. There you are. Everybody knows now. Send it all. Send it all.
Can we talk about the Chimera for a second? Because
yeah, of course.
I thought it was really interesting. So we put the invite out to our issue 1 contributors, and how quickly everyone jumped on this weird theme. Like how
that was amazing. Yeah.
It wasn't like, nobody was writing a hard crime story, even though there was elements of crime in it. But every one of our writers who, most of them identify as crime writers, jumped on the weird theme like gangbusters. I thought that was so cool that was just sort of like our default, was we went into this weird horror kind of like thing, even though that's not typically what most of us write.
Yeah, that was, if you guys, people watching, haven't read that, it's up on our website under web exclusives, that whole Chimera from a Hard Place, of Franken story. It's great. I think there were like 9 chapters, right? But it's a short read.
And I think we might be doing another one too. So
yeah, we're in
field.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to make it as weird. It'll be something else.
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe it'll be a rom-com.
I thought we drew the line. That's the one genre we're not doing.
Rom-com? I don't know. I could do a meet cute. I think that would go.
I'm all for a good rom-com with a dead body. And difficult choice. Possibly just how to get them in the trunk without mother noticing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's our next Chimera theme. We just started it.
Although by description, I think it's a caper. That's what that was. It's, you know, a good caper. Send us a caper. I'm all about the heist and the caper. Send that to us too.
Yep.
So back to our questions. We had, we use the term noir a lot. I think somebody said in a review of ours on issue 3 of Rob White, put on Amazon, that noir is something that's hard to define, but you know when you see it. How do you guys define noir? I said, you know, stories about losers that don't have happy endings. What do you guys think, and how do you think we've interpreted noir?
Well, the famous definition, the famous distinction between hard-boiled and noir. Hard-boiled equals tough, noir equals screwed. I'm terrible about remembering who to attribute things like that to, but somebody said it.
Yeah. I'm going to attribute this to Al, because I think you said it at one point, and it stuck for me, was noir is when bad guy meets worse guy. And yeah, I think that a lot of our...
Yes.
You said that, yeah. It was insightful.
We have it recorded, Al.
We have it on tape. But yeah, that was like the perfect distillation of what noir is for me.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that definition more so that way, because I don't think that it can be noir even if you have money in the bank. I mean, even if you're smart about it and whatnot, because I just feel like it is those dark choices you make and continuing to dig that hole for that character. That's what they're doing. That is bad choices and bad choices and bad choices. And that ends in a bad way. I mean, nobody's getting out, walking off in the sunset without possibly needing an amputation or something. Like, it's not good. It's not good. There's no happy ending. There's just, and life goes on. You know, for me, that's noir. Bad choices.
What do you think it is about noir that kind of, I know for me personally, a lot of times when I'm in my darkest or I'm struggling the most with something in my personal life, I'll turn to noir and it kind of uplifts me, even though it's, not really intended as an uplifting genre. What do you think it is that, appeals about noir? Why do people kind of turn to it? Whether it's, during bad times or just in general?
I mean, for me, my wife attributes it to my chronic depression. I like it just because I just have a bleak outlook on everything. Therefore, it appeals to me. But I think there's something to the comfort, Jay. I think just realizing that everybody's got shit going on is something that comforts people.
Could it involve the old idea of catharsis?
Yeah, I think that might be part of it too, especially like noir that's infused with crime, because sometimes those anti-heroes are doing exactly what we wish we could do. If, consequences and, rules of decency be damned, that you could just kind of, pull on the ski mask and rob the bank. And, in normal society, you would never do that. But sometimes in a book, it's not so bad.
So have all of y'all read Miami Purity? I was talking about it a couple days last week or something like that. But Vicki Hendricks.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, no.
please read Miami Purity. It is such perfection. But it's the postman rings twice with a dry cleaner man. But so the beginning of that, and I think our buddy Mark Pelletier did a book talk on it a while back. There's the opening line of that where Sherry, her guy hits her. And she's like, and it wasn't the first time, but this time she picked up the boombox and like cracks him over the head with it and kills him. And I laughed. Not because it's funny, because it was so.
You laugh because you're crazy.
Once you get past that setup, you're in this free fall. Like, where else can this go? Because she just killed somebody. I mean, literally 2 sentences and her boyfriend's dead. By the end of the page, she's gone off on a bender and I think wakes up in the hospital. That's page 1. There is something about that deliciousness. I mean, like these are not people you want to hang out with. These are not people, these are people you hope you don't know because you would wish that on no one. But there is, yes, something delicious about it for me. It is just to sink into that world, and it is so far from my life with, you know, kids and work and the mom-mobile minivan and whatnot like that, that I take comfort in, that I am amused by. I think I don't like horror because I have nightmares. So I don't do horror, never have done it. But I know for people who truly enjoy it, it is that rush. They laugh through it. What I'm like, that is crime fiction noir for me. It is that initial rush, because when it's good, you are just in it. And it is so, it's the high water mark for me. It is to take somebody by the hand and say, look, I'm going to kill my boyfriend now, and you're going to enjoy the whole ride.
Yeah.
Nikki, I saw you tweet the excerpt from that book, and I was like, what is this? I really liked it, so I'm going to check that out.
Yes, please do. I mean, that is, Vicki Hendricks has several books, lots of books, but that one in particular was very pivotal for me, reading it. It was a you know, like the light shined down upon the book when the page opened. It was like that for me.
Wow. So another thing about noir for me is that it feels like I read it and I feel the way that I did when I first discovered punk rock when I was an adolescent, is that punk rock is really pissed off. And I think noir is too. And it's hit me at a different stage in life where, you know, stuff, you know, things like Black Flag don't resonate with me as much at close to 40 as they did, you know, when I was 13. But noir brings that feeling again, where it's just like you are in a shit situation and what are you going to do? And you're just pissed off about it.
Yeah, and I think Rock in a Hard Place really does have kind of a punk rock aesthetic. You know, yeah, I was a ska kid, so I'm not nearly as pissed off at anything. We're just happy. It's just a thing. You know, we eat mozzarella sticks. Yeah, someone told me that ska is like when you find an extra mozzarella stick in your order. But I think that sort of notion of one that sort of like barely tapped anger, I think kind of flows through some of the stuff that we do. And also very much that punk do-it-yourself aesthetic. Because I feel like even bringing the magazine together the first time was, you know, none of us had put together a publication like that. We learned it all on the fly. If we need a photo, we'll go out and take a photo, or we'll hit up one of our friends for a photo. If we need to do a cover, we'll figure it out. So that's sort of like DIY, like homegrown, but still polished, but very much like homegrown attitude of making art for the sake of making art, and just kind of taking it on our own. I think that's sort of infused in what we do.
We're the lit equivalent of a basement show.
Pretty much.
If you guys remember basement shows, I frequented many.
In the before times.
In the before time, well, yeah. Well, the way before times, like 20 years ago. Not, I'm too old to go in a basement now. I'd hurt myself.
20 years ago, I was having kids. You have to go further back. I'm sorry.
Well,
the 90s. Go with the 90s. Can we 90s grunge? That's me. 90s grunge.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was into it too, but I was too young to go to shows at that point.
That's our age difference. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just a few years. Just a few. So other questions on Facebook. What turns you off when reading a submission? I can answer that real easily. What other than missing publications themes has hitting the reject button? I mean, well, he kind of answers it in the second question. It's just that magazines themes, I was just discussing it today with everyone, but look, for me, a story from the POV of a police officer, to me, look, I'm a punk kid. I'm going to have an issue with a cop story. But that's a position of privilege. I'm going to have a hard time with that. And I think I view it as somewhat of our purpose as a magazine there's been a lot of criticism of kind of police procedural novels of continuing this idea of police as saviors. And I think if we are going to impact anything, I would like that to be one of our impacts, is that we kind of help turn the ship on that. So I just don't want stories like that. But anyway, what do you guys think?
For me, I think it's stories where someone's punching down. Like, I don't like people being taken advantage of or being bullied unless the wheel of karma is also turning. And you can see that, that person that's punching down now is going to get theirs in the end. Then I'll allow it. But I really don't like to see people, being taken advantage of. I guess the idea of, when we're all struggling, to then impose struggle on someone else, it just, I don't know. There has to be a narrative reason for it, I think.
I can't really put my finger on any one thing.
I was tough on second person.
Second person, yeah, it makes me break out.
I love second person, though.
Yes, Jay, I knew I liked you. Yeah.
The other thing is slice of life. We already have a debate about that. Something's got to happen. Yeah, it's like a story. If I pick up a book and I read down the jacket flap, a meditation on, I put the book back because it means nothing happens. Yeah.
I'm never going to be the one for police anything. And I can't really, I never gravitated that way. I never wanted to write a police procedural, and I tend to avoid it. But I stand by, if the story works, the story works. I mean, if it's a good story, like for me, if the story works, then, I think that's a discussion that we all probably have, but I also think we're of the general mindset that might not fly well with us. But some of us like second person. Send that.
Okay.
Just direct it to me and Nikki. Don't send it to Al.
We published the second person story.
We did. Happens. It was great.
I actually did kind of end up coming around to that story, yeah. But in general.
All right. We talked about rom-coms, but humor. Someone on Facebook asks, how well do we think humor mixes? I'm not able to do it. When I write, I just go dark and that's it. That's all I'm good at is just misery. But there are stories that are noir that are funny. I think that, again, Potato Sandwich Days is a really funny story. And it's dark too. I don't know. Do we have any others? What do you guys think about humor in noir?
If you make me laugh and it's dark humor, you pretty much got me. I try to do that stuff. It's debatable whether I'm successful, but I try. But yeah, if you can elicit a laugh, then even while the whole world is kind of crumbling and everything, then I'm probably going to be a fan.
I think humor is like a flash of lightning in the dark. In noir, I think that's how I would describe it.
And points if you can make us feel bad for laughing too.
Yeah.
If we laugh and then because the lizard brain takes over and we laugh at something and then we realize no, we shouldn't be laughing at that. That's a winner.
That's frequently a thing I experience because I do laugh at it, even if it's not funny, but But no, if you can pull that off and if it's in that situation, in the character of those people who are doing these things, I will giggle all the way through it happily. And I know it can be done. I am not the one doing it, but I know it can be done. Yeah. Send us those too.
I think Todd Robinson is amazing at mixing noir and humor.
Yes.
Okay, a few more questions on Facebook. Let's see. What were some of our favorite stories and why? I mean, if we published it, it was one of our favorites. I mean, I've mentioned a few. The Potato Sandwich Days. Jackie Freemore did one that was in issue 2, right? Workers in the Cancer Factory. Weird, speculative, dark, really socially relevant. Just perfect. What else? Issue 1.
I'm going to take a real controversial stance and say Sean Cosby in issue 1. It's controversial to say you like Sean Cosby. No, Sean Cosby is amazing. And his Anchors That Tie Us Down really was a standout for me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think the recent issue 3, even though we just put it together. Let's see. I mean, Rick Reisenberg, The Parking Lot, really compassionate story. Mm-hmm. I just love that stuff. Look, I was raised in a Lutheran family, even though, I'm not the most religious person, but stories that bring out what I see as being kind of the true kind of compassionate side of Christianity, in very subtle ways, I really like, even though, as a punk kid, I don't think you'd think I had leanings like that, but sometimes I do.
Yeah. Also, Oscar Montoya leaves in issue 3, David Rachel's, and Gabrielle Nelson's Lost Dog Dreams really, and the interesting thing about those is that for a magazine that feels very rooted in crime fiction, there was no crime committed. In those two stories alone, it was just, again, was one of those things where you immediately recognize it as noir, but it's very literary. So I think those really work very well.
Yeah.
But again, all the stories, we published it, we loved it. And, I try and express as much as possible how grateful I am to all of the people that contribute to Rock and a Hard Place, because they've trusted us with their stories. And, it just feels like every time I take a look at the submissions and see, another name of somebody I know, or a story that just works on so many levels, I just feel grateful that people are trusting us to put out their work.
Yeah, it sounds like this is just a platitude, but it really is an honor to publish these stories. It really is. Yeah. Your favorites, Jen Conley's piece, really, again, socially relevant, important, and weird and dark. So it hits the stuff that I love. I really love horror. I can't really write it too well, but I really like it. Yeah. But even Jen discussed that it's a hard thing to write. Okay. Another question: does acceptance require a unanimous vote from the four of you? Do you have to work through disagreements? Yeah, I'd say we at least have to be like, okay, I'm okay with this story being published, and I see how you can like it, and I can live with it being included.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But we don't all have to love it.
Yeah. And I think what works for us is that we have a very open channel of communication between the editors. So, we can talk things through and never really become disagreeable or forceful about our opinions. But a lot of times I'm trying to think if there's anything that I wasn't necessarily originally sold on, and then I became a fan after the fact, after we agreed to publish it. I'm pretty sure that's happened as well, where it's like I didn't see it in the moment and you guys did, and then I'm glad we ended up running with something.
I think definitely stories and getting the reasons why something worked for Jay or Al, when it comes down to those final decisions, makes all the difference. Rereading it, understanding what appealed to somebody else. Okay, that different perspective can change. A maybe to a yes for me. I know.
Yeah, there were definite, I sometimes I see my role in making sure that the stories stick to my original concept of the magazine. And then I have to remind myself that, in order to make this thing work, I kind of have to allow for other people's concepts of what makes this thing work to be included as well. So then I say, okay, let your guard down, and see what else is here. And I know there were a few that I was like, yeah, I don't know, and definitely, we haven't published anything that I am not happy with. All right, Facebook guys, we've got 10 minutes left, or 8 minutes or something. If you have a question, get it in.
Scott Adlerberg wanted to know how darkly funny.
Oh, how really? I don't know.
Pretty much as dark as you can go.
You can make it. Yeah. Yeah. As long as it's relevant to the themes. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I write really dark stuff, so I don't think you have to worry as long as it has a point to the darkness, you know. So gratuitous things, obviously, if it doesn't serve any purpose, right? But it doesn't mean we won't enjoy reading it. Let's see what other questions I have down. Anything you guys still want to see? You're waiting for the story aside from the rom-com?
I always like tough chicks.
Okay.
I mean,
Al's got a type.
There might be Facebook groups for that.
It might not be on Facebook. It might be on.
Oh yeah. There are other sites for that.
No, I'm kidding. I really want to see new voices, new writers. You know, send us your first stories. Send us your own voices stories, your characters who are in the world you live in. Be you Black or, gay or what have you. I don't care. I just really want to see it. Show us what you have. Show us what your world looks like. And I think there's an honesty that comes through good stories that people writing other perspectives sometimes miss. And I want to hear those voices. I mean, I'm talking to you out there who's, I got the opportunities I got was because someone reached out to me and they said, you're a woman and you're Black and you're, not anything that I've read. So come over here and come write something. Those opportunities. And I think that, you should, I'm reaching out my hand, send me those things. That's what I want to see. However you want to tell that tale. If you can make your characters fit our theme, then send it. Send what you think fits, and maybe it doesn't, but we can also have a conversation about that. I don't think any of us are beyond sending some notes back. Maybe we can have a conversation. Maybe that story doesn't work, but if you send me something that's great, I'm probably going to send you, we're all going to talk about it. And you're going to get an email saying, hey, the new issue is coming. Do you have something new? Because I think, slush pile, solicitations, all of that can come together to help us make an even better magazine. And that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I think, we've all kind of talked about, we want to be inclusive of own voices writers. We want to be inclusive of so many different perspectives. So please send us that stuff. Visual art. If you're an illustrator, a photographer, even if you dabble, I've had a lot of photos that I've run in the magazine because we didn't have other stuff. And they were shot on my iPhone. So we all have the camera that we walk around with every day. If you see something that's visually interesting, shoot it and send it over. We can take a look and see if it's something that we want to run with. I'm trying to think if there's anything. This might sound super vague, but just stories that are human, that really kind of, the ones that mean the most to me are the ones that kind of reach me emotionally. So it doesn't have to be like an action-packed shoot 'em up. Like I want to see stories of, kind of realizing your place in the world, or stories about, dealing with a a bad relationship or that kind of stuff just as much as I want to see the shoot 'em ups. So I think that's something that I'm looking for. And also stories that, and not just stories, poetry. We did run one poem so far. I'd like to do more of that kind of stuff. I'd like to do literary work that is a little bit risky. I think I said when we were promoting issue 3, if you send me something with crazy formatting, as a publisher, I'll love it. As a book designer, I'm going to hate myself for loving it. But stuff that pushes the envelope a little bit, if you can pair a story and a photograph, that kind of stuff, I'd love to see that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. I'm the poli-sci major kind of activist in the past, a punk rock kid. I want the stories that have politics in them. I know a lot of writing teachers tell you no one wants to read about your politics. Bullshit. I do. A story with a political tinge to it, given that it is not crazy white right-wing stuff, then I want it.
Yeah, we only want certain politics.
yeah, but look, if you read the magazine, you'll know what they are. Yeah. It's not that hard. But we can't, the world the way it is, I don't think a publication like ours can be honest and not have political leanings. Not now, certainly not. We've got one more minute. We got another question online. Facebook. Sometimes you'll receive a compelling story, but the manuscript is a hot mess, bad grammar, misspellings, poor punctuation. How willing are you, or how much time are you willing to spend to make that story publishable? I'd say we're really willing. If the story's there, we're going to work with you. I don't know as we grow how much that's going to be. I'll be honest. Like we see. The quality of submissions increases each time we open for submissions. And I don't know, as we keep going and we get more submissions, how long we're going to be able to work with things. That's just being honest. What do you guys think?
I think that's 100% though. We do want to work with people. We want to make sure, if you've got the story, if you want to tell the story, we want to help you tell the story. So, we have a fairly rigorous copy editing process. If it's something that needs more than just like proofreading and copy editing, we have pushed stories back to writers and asked them to take a look at something and see if they could work on this part here, or that kind of thing. We've then had them resubmit and have accepted some of those. Not all of them though. So it's not a guarantee. If we ask you to work on something, if you send it back, that it's going to get in the magazine. But yeah, I think that, I think all of us are authors before we were publishers and editors. So we're very author friendly in that way. We want to help you. And so, we'll do what we can to make that work.
Yeah. But just, we're editors, we're trying to make it work. If we accept your piece and edit it and you don't like the edit, there are ways to say that and there are ways to not say that. So if you do not like the edits you receive, talk to us. But if you talk to us in a certain way, we reserve the right to not publish the story. I think everyone can read between the lines. That makes sense.
Does it say that if we ask you not to submit anymore, that you should really listen to that, or should give that for later? Sorry.
Yeah. Really, you don't want to ever be in the position with us where we tell you not to submit anymore. You have to have done something.
Don't send us Dilbert-style cartoons. Like, we're pretty open with what we think works within our sphere, but workplace cartoons isn't the one. We're not for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And just don't overload us with submissions. Like we'll, if we say this story doesn't work and you send us another, that sort of thing, it's, that's okay. But like, if you send us 10 submissions, I'm going to lose my mind. So, don't make our lives harder.
So, do we have time for one more question?
I think so. I mean, we're over, but it's up to us.
Yeah. I guess I just want to ask you guys, where do you see us going with this? Where do you see Rock and a Hard Place going?
Well, you know how I feel about this. I want to rule the world in a nice sense. I'm not,
benevolent dictatorship.
Well, I mean, look, I want to build this into like a real press. Is my, we don't know how to get there yet, but that's where I want to go.
That sounds good.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I just want us to have, to be the kind of place where up and coming writers were at the top of their list because we consistently put out excellent work. I want to be, a part of that place.
And we're not gatekeepers for the old guard. That we're willing to take all writers. I remember in issue 2, we actually had we had a professor and a student. One of their students both submitted, both got in. Yeah. I thought that was kind of a really neat thing that, we can take people that are established in the business. We can take people that have been writing for a long time and have a strong name recognition, and they'll be right there next to somebody who this is their first ever published piece. But if the story quality is there, the story quality is there, and that we can help tell those stories, I think is a value.
I mean, in practical terms, I talk about us growing in terms of the amount of things we publish and that sort of stuff. And that's, of course, important. But really, I want to have an impact on kind of the literary world. I know, we all saw kind of recently lots of stuff on social media about how crime fiction in particular can be to blame for a lot of things. And this is being really, really ambitious. But if we could be a place that turns that around or changes that, that's where I want to go. So I'm, of course we want to have our name recognized and things like that. And, but I think more important, I want to actually change things. So, okay. This is really fun. We got a lot of comments. You guys, hope you guys felt the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone on Facebook who chimed in.
Yeah, it was great. And we didn't have any technical difficulties. I promised people on my Facebook page that they would catch me cursing at Zoom and Facebook, and I'm sorry that didn't happen.
Do you want to let one go? Just
if it doesn't feel, it's going to feel forced. It's not going to be right. Okay. It has to be from the heart.
Just a little one.
I don't like Mark Zuckerberg. How's that?
We'll take it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the Facebook Live now. All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.